The twist behind the bleeding body will shock you. For one girl working the late shift, the night started like any other. But what she was about to find in the back room wasn't just a body. It was a message. And the twist behind who sent it will shock you. The setup. An ordinary night. The Starlight Motel was a relic. A tired old sentinel on a forgotten stretch of highway 60 miles from nowhere. Its neon sign, a proud pink and blue starburst in a past life, now sputtered with a tired, arrhythmic fizz. Half the letters in vacancy had given up years ago, offering a cryptic VaNY to the void. This was Clara's kingdom, from dusk until dawn. A kingdom of stale coffee, the humming silence of the desert, and the ghosts of 1,000 lonely travelers. She was 22, entombed in this solitary job to chip away at a mountain of student debt. The night shift paid better, they'd said. It was quieter, they'd promised. What they didn't mention was that the quiet had teeth. It was a living, breathing entity that pressed in on you from all sides, leaving you alone with the frantic, too loud beat of your own heart. Tonight, the quiet was particularly loud. The air hung still and heavy, pregnant with a storm that never came. Clara sat behind the front desk, a sociology textbook lying open and ignored. The words swam on the page, meaningless symbols in the face of the oppressive stillness. Her mind was adrift, lulled by the low, monotonous hum of the ancient vending machine in the corner. Every night was a ritual of small noises, a fragile symphony she clung to. The groan of the ice machine down the hall, the incessant buzz of the flickering fluorescent light she'd long since learned to ignore. The distant, mournful wail of a train that only magnified her isolation. Anything that broke this symphony was cause for alarm. Around 1 a.m., a deviation arrived. It was subtle at first. A low thud from the back of the building, near the laundry and storage rooms. This wasn't a familiar clank or the building settling. This was a dull, heavy, sickening sound. The sound of something falling, something soft, something that shouldn't have. Clara froze, her head snapping up, her ears straining against the silence that followed. She held her breath, waiting. Seconds stretched into an agonizing minute. Then, 2. Nothing. The familiar hums and buzzes of the motel rushed back in to fill the void, but the spell was broken. It was nothing. Just the old building groaning in its sleep. She told herself that, repeating the words like a prayer, but her focus was shattered. Her heart was now a traitor, a frantic drum against her ribs. She tried to rationalize it. A box of linens toppling over, a stray coyote bumping against the back door. But the sound had felt internal, close. A deep, primal unease coiled in her gut. She stood up, her legs stiff and unwilling. A quick check, that's all. Just to silence the nagging voice of dread that was now screaming in her head. She grabbed the heavy ring of master keys, their metallic jangle a small, tinny defiance against the suffocating quiet. The hallway stretched out before her, a long, dim, gullet-like corridor. The air grew colder, heavier, as she moved away from the relative safety of the lobby. The laundry room was at the very end of the hall, next to storage room B, a place she rarely entered. It held spare furniture, old cleaning supplies, the forgotten junk of decades of unseen lives. She checked the laundry room first, her heart in her throat. Nothing out of place. She then turned to the heavy steel back door. Locked, bolted, secure. That left only one possibility. The storage room. A thin, sickly line of light was visible from underneath the door. That was wrong. That was so wrong. She always kept that light off. The switch was broken. It had to be unscrewed from the socket. Her hand trembled as she reached for the doorknob. This is ridiculous, she thought. The words a hollow comfort. She was a grown woman, spooked by a noise. Still, she couldn't shake the distinct, chilling feeling of being watched. She turned the knob. It was unlocked. That was the second thing that was wrong. Pushing the door inward, she was met with a wall of cool, stale air that smelled of dust and decay. The room was lit by a single, bare bulb, casting long, distorted shadows that danced like specters around stacks of old mattresses and furniture draped in white sheets, like rows of waiting cadavers. And that's when she saw it, sprawled in the narrow walkway. At first, her brain refused to process the image. It was just a shape, a pile of clothes, a trick of the light. Then her eyes focused, and the world tilted on its axis. It was a man. He was lying face down in jeans and a dark jacket. He was perfectly, unnaturally still. Clara's breath hitched, a silent scream building behind her teeth. This wasn't possible. She hadn't checked anyone in for hours. No cars had pulled into the lot. No headlights had sliced through the darkness. Where did he come from? Was he drunk? Hurt? She took a hesitant, shuffling step into the room, the door swinging slowly shut behind her, the latch clicking with a dreadful, irreversible finality. "Sir?" she whispered, her voice a dry, unrecognizable crackle. "Sir, are you okay?" No response. The silence was absolute, a physical weight in the small room. She crept closer, every nerve ending screaming at her to run. Kneeling beside the still form, her hand hesitated just inches from his shoulder. She had to know. With a surge of bile and adrenaline, she placed her fingers on his neck, searching for the warm thrum of a pulse. There was nothing, just cold, clammy, waxy skin. He was gone. A wave of nausea and pure, unadulterated terror washed over her. A dead body in her motel. She scrambled backward, a choked sob escaping her lips, her eyes wide with a horror that felt too big for the room. She had to call the police. She had to get out. She was halfway to her feet when something caught her eye. Something so impossible it shattered her panicked thoughts. On the exposed skin of the man's neck, a thin blue line pulsed with a soft internal light. It was a vein, and it was moving. It rose and fell with a slow, steady, rhythmic beat. Her gaze darted to the back of his hand. There, too, veins snaked across his skin like living wires, twitching and pulsing with the same ghastly, impossible rhythm. Blood was visibly, actively, pumping through the body of a man who was by all other accounts, completely and utterly dead. The room began to spin. The sight was so fundamentally wrong, so grotesquely unnatural, her mind couldn't contain it. This wasn't just a body. This was something else. Something monstrous. And it was here, in this small, dusty room, with her. Section 2. The Trap. No way out. Time dissolved into a frozen, silent scream. Clara was paralyzed, her mind a blank slate of horror, staring at the ghastly spectacle on the floor. The man's body lay still, a perfect portrait of death, yet his veins continued their silent, hypnotic, rhythmic dance. It was a sick paradox, a glitch in reality that had swallowed her whole. Her training manual had a section on emergencies, fires, robberies, medical incidents. Stay calm. Call 911. Do not engage. The manual did not have a chapter for discovering a reanimated corpse whose blood flowed with a life of its own. What if it wasn't dead? The thought was a new, sharper kind of terror. What if this was some bizarre, undocumented medical condition? She had to be sure. Fighting every screaming instinct, she crawled forward again, her movements stiff and jerky. The veins seemed to glow with a faint, blue-green luminescence in the dim light. She reached for his wrist this time, her fingers fumbling for a pulse point. The skin was even colder now, a deep, penetrating cold that seemed to suck the warmth from her fingertips. And beneath that cold, dead flesh, she could feel it. A faint, steady, mechanical feeling thrum. It wasn't the soft, organic beat of a human heart. It was a low-frequency, metronomic vibration, like a tiny engine humming deep within the tissue. It didn't feel like life. It felt like machinery. This was no medical anomaly. This was deliberate. This was wrong. Her mind, poisoned by a lifetime of horror movies, flashed with images of reanimated corpses, of things that mimicked life, only to lure their prey. The image of the body suddenly snapping upright, its head swiveling towards her with a crack of bone, sent a fresh wave of ice-cold terror through her. She scrambled to her feet. Police. Now. She backed out of the storage room, not daring to turn her back, pulled the door shut, and the click of the latch echoed like a gunshot in the hallway. Back in the dingy, familiar lobby, the surroundings offered no comfort. Everything looked alien, tainted by what she had seen. She snatched the receiver of the landline, her hand shaking so badly she could barely punch the numbers. 911. She jammed the receiver to her ear and was met with absolute, profound silence. No dial tone, no static, nothing. The line was a dead, hollow void. A new, frantic panic began to prickle at her skin. Okay, stay calm. Her cell phone. She dug it out of her back pocket, her thumb swiping frantically at the screen. She navigated to the phone app, her eyes darting around the empty, suddenly menacing lobby. She stared at the top of the screen. No service. The 2 words stared back at her, a digital death sentence. No bars, not a single one. She always had at least 1 bar out here. It was weak, but it was always there. Tonight, nothing. It was as if the Starlight Motel had been surgically severed from the rest of the world. A terrible, suffocating claustrophobia closed in. She was alone, completely, utterly alone with that thing in the back room. Was this all a coincidence? The body, the dead phone line, the non-existent cell service? It couldn't be. It felt like a meticulously constructed trap. Her eyes darted to the front glass door. Freedom was just a few feet away. She lunged for it, her hands closing around the heavy brass handle, a sob of desperate hope in her throat. She pushed. It didn't budge. Confused, she peered through the glass into the blackness. And then she saw it. A heavy, industrial-grade chain was wrapped around the handles on the outside, pulled taut and secured with a thick, greasy padlock that glinted in the faint lobby light. The breath left her body in a painful whoosh. She was locked in, chained in, from the outside. Someone had been out there. Someone had come while she was in the back discovering the body, and had calmly, methodically, trapped her. This wasn't random. This was a cage, and she was the rat. She stumbled back, a low moan catching in her throat. She spun around, her eyes wild, desperately searching for another way out. The back door. She ran back down the dizzying, stretching hallway, not even slowing as she passed the storage room door, which now seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy. She reached the steel door at the end of the hall and rattled the handle. It, too, was immovable. She put her eye to the peephole. Another chain, another padlock. She was sealed in. The motel was no longer her kingdom. It was her tomb. The quiet was no longer empty. It was filled with the crushing presence of a silent, unseen captor, a puppeteer playing a twisted game. And the centerpiece of that game, the poisoned pawn, was lying just a few feet away, behind a thin wooden door. She was trapped in here with it, and a chilling new thought began to form, crystal clear in its horror. What if the game was just getting started? The game begins. The silence that followed was different. The motel's usual groans and hums were now just a background score to the roaring terror in Clara's own head. The nicotine-stained walls of the lobby felt like they were pressing in on her, the air thick and hard to breathe. She was an animal in a snare, and the hunter was watching. She was sure of it. This whole elaborate setup, the body, the dead phones, the chains on the doors, it was all too perfect, too theatrical. This wasn't a simple crime of passion. It was a performance, a meticulously crafted horror show, and she was its only captive audience member. Her mind raced, skittering from one terrible possibility to the next. Who would do this? Why? She scanned the guest log from the past few weeks, her eyes blurring. A family on vacation, a quiet trucker who paid in cash, a young couple who argued in the parking lot. No one stood out. The true horror was in the not knowing. The threat was a faceless, omniscient ghost. She paced the lobby, a caged animal on a leash of pure fear. Her gaze kept flicking back down the hallway, toward the storage room door. It was just a door, but it had become a portal to a world of absolute horror. What was happening in there right now? Was it still lying there, its dead veins pulsing in the dark? The thought sent a jolt of ice through her system. She retreated behind the false security of the front desk, crouching down, trying to make herself as small and insignificant as possible, as if she could just will herself to disappear into the grimy linoleum. Minutes bled into what felt like hours. Every creak of the old building was a footstep. Every flicker of the dying lights was a sign of impending attack. She held her breath, listening, straining to hear something beyond the normal, now terrifying sounds of the motel. And then she heard it. A soft, wet, dragging noise. It came from the hallway. A scrape. A long pause. Another scrape. Clara's blood turned to ice water in her veins. It was the unmistakable sound of heavy fabric, of dead weight, being dragged slowly across the floor. She squeezed her eyes shut, praying, bargaining with a god she didn't believe in, that it was just her imagination. Scrape. Pause. Scrape. It was closer now, just outside the entrance to the lobby. Her heart hammered against her ribs like a trapped bird. She knew, with a bone-deep certainty that defied all logic, what was making that sound. The body. The body was moving. She clamped a hand over her mouth to stifle a scream. This wasn't possible. Dead things don't move. But the thing in the back room wasn't just dead. It was something else. That mechanical thrum she'd felt. Was it some kind of motor powering this grotesque, horrifying locomotion? The scraping stopped. The silence that followed was somehow 1,000 times more terrifying. Where was it? Was it waiting? Listening? A new sound began, a low, guttural humming. It seemed to vibrate up through the floorboards and into her bones. It was a distorted, electronic sound, like a human voice recorded and played back in slow motion. A drawn-out, agonized, digital groan that was neither living nor dead. Tears streamed down her face, hot against her cold skin. This was a nightmare made real. The unseen puppeteer was pulling the strings, and she was the only one in the audience. They wanted her to be scared. They wanted her to lose her mind. And it was working. And then, with a sharp clack, the lights went out. Pitch black, absolute suffocating darkness. The humming stopped. The world, the motel, everything was gone. The only sound in the universe was her own ragged, panicked breathing, loud and wet in the black. She was blind, and she was not alone. The thing from the back room was out here, somewhere in the lobby with her. She could feel its presence, a cold spot in the air, a void in the darkness. Was it looking for her? Could it see in the dark? She didn't dare move. She didn't dare breathe. The seconds ticked by, each one an eternity of pure, concentrated dread. Where was it? Then, with a violent, buzzing flicker, the emergency lights kicked on, flooding the lobby with a sickly, yellow-green, underwater glow. Clara blinked, her eyes adjusting to the hellish light. She slowly, fearfully, raised her head above the lip of the desk. Her heart stopped. It was there, slumped against the far wall between her and the hallway. The body had moved. It had dragged itself the entire length of the hallway in the dark and was now here, with her. She stared, her mind refusing to accept what her eyes were seeing. The scraping noise, the digital groan. It was all real. This wasn't a passive object, a simple corpse. It was an active participant in her torment. It was a piece on the chessboard, a black knight that had just cut off her escape. She was no longer just trapped in the motel. She was trapped in this single room with a reanimated corpse that was slowly, methodically, relentlessly cornering her. The game had just escalated, and she had the sickening feeling that it was her turn to move. Section 4. The Revelation. Clara Bell. The sight of the body, a silent, slumped sentinel in the jaundiced glow of the emergency lights, broke something deep inside Clara. Logic had no place here. The rules of the world she knew had been systematically dismantled and thrown away. In this sealed-off bubble of reality, dead things moved with a purpose she couldn't comprehend. Her hiding spot behind the desk no longer felt safe. It felt like a coffin. She was cornered. For a long, terrifying time, she just watched it. She watched for a twitch, a flicker of an eyelid, any sign of movement. But it remained perfectly still. The only movement was the one she couldn't see, but knew was there. The ceaseless, rhythmic, unnatural pulsing of the veins beneath its cold skin. She had to do something. Hiding here, waiting for the inevitable, was a form of surrender. Her survival instinct, buried under an avalanche of terror, began to stir. A tiny flickering candle in a hurricane. She had to fight back. She had to find a weapon. Slowly, carefully, she began to move, staying low behind the counter like a soldier in a trench. Her hands searched blindly for anything she could use. A heavy-duty stapler. Too small. A mug of pens. Useless. Then, her fingers closed around something solid, metallic, and heavy. The fire extinguisher. Clutching it to her chest like a holy relic, she felt a small, desperate surge of courage. She wasn't helpless. She had a weapon. Now she needed a plan. The body was blocking the main hallway. But to her left was a door to the small manager's office. It wasn't an exit, but it was another room. A room with a lock. The problem was, she'd have to cross 10 feet of open, horribly illuminated floor. She would be completely exposed. She took a deep, shuddering breath, her knuckles white on the canister. It was now or never. She had to believe it was slow. The dragging sound had been slow. She could be faster. "Okay," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Okay, Clara, you can do this." On the count of 3, she burst from behind the desk, moving in a low, fast, desperate crouch. The 10 feet to the office door felt like a mile-long sprint across a battlefield. Every instinct screamed that the body was moving behind her, that a cold hand was about to grab her shoulder and drag her back. She reached the door, her hand fumbling for the knob. Her fingers, slick with sweat, slipped. "No, no, no," she whimpered, tears of frustration blurring her vision. The knob turned. She scrambled inside, slammed the door shut, and fumbled for the lock. A simple button lock in the center of the knob. She pushed it. Click. Safe. For now. The office was tiny, filled with filing cabinets and a dusty desk. A small, high window was barred. No escape here. But it was a fortress. She slumped to the floor, the fire extinguisher heavy in her lap, her entire body trembling with post-adrenaline tremors. She'd done it. She'd moved, and it hadn't gotten her. She sat there for what must have been half an hour, just listening. The silence from the lobby was absolute, and somehow more menacing than the noises from before. Then a new sound started. Not from the lobby. From right here, in the office with her. A soft electronic chime. Clara's head snapped up. The chime came again, clear and digital. It was the sound of a computer booting up. The dusty monitor on the desk, which had been black and dead, was now glowing with a brilliant electric blue. And then, black letters began to appear, typed out slowly, deliberately, one by one. HELLOCLARA ITSBEEN ALONGTIME. The blood drained from Clara's face. The computer wasn't even plugged in. She could see the thick power cord coiled on the floor like a dead snake. This was a direct communication. The puppeteer was finally speaking to her. "Who are you?" she breathed, the words barely a whisper. "YOUDONTREMEMBER me. I am HURT. BUTWESEDTOBESUCHGOODFRIENDS. The words made no sense, a riddle in the heart of a nightmare. But the phrase, "such good friends," it tickled a distant cobwebbed corner of her memory, a place she hadn't visited in years. Another line appeared. IMGOINGTOCOMEINNOW. Clara's eyes shot to the door. A loud metallic bang echoed from the other side, shaking the flimsy door in its frame. Then another, harder this time. The door shuddered. It was trying to get in. The body. Bang! A crack appeared in the cheap wood, snaking out from the doorknob. Bang! The crack splintered up the length of the door, showering her with paint chips. Clara scrambled away, pressing herself into the far corner, her back against the cold metal of a filing cabinet. She held the fire extinguisher up like a shield. This was it. Bang! With an explosive crack of splintering wood, the lock gave way. The door swung violently inward, and in the doorway, silhouetted against the sickly yellow light of the lobby, it stood. The body was no longer slumped. It was standing upright. Its posture was all wrong. Its limbs held at awkward, unnatural angles, like a marionette, with its strings pulled too tight. Its head was tilted down, its face hidden in shadow. It took a slow, dragging, scraping step into the room, then another. A faint, high-pitched whirring sound now came from deep inside its chest. It was a monster, patched together from dead flesh and humming machinery, and it was here to kill her. The fear that had paralyzed her for hours suddenly ignited, transforming into white-hot rage. Rage at the sheer injustice of it all. "Get away from me," she screamed, the sound raw and torn from her throat. The thing kept coming, its head slowly lifting. As it stepped into the faint, flickering light of the monitor, she saw its face for the first time. The skin was pale and waxy, the eyes closed as if in sleep. It wasn't the face of a monster. It was just the face of a man. A dead man, puppeted by an unseen, malicious force. This only fueled her rage. The thing was only a few feet away now. It raised an arm, its fingers stiff and curled, reaching for her. With a primal roar, Clara lunged forward. She swung the heavy fire extinguisher with all the strength in her body, aiming for its head. She wasn't going to die hiding in a corner. She was going to fight. The heavy cylinder connected with a sickening, wet crunch of flesh and bone. But there was another sound, too. A sharp crack of plastic and the tinkle of broken glass. The body staggered sideways as if slapped, then collapsed in a heap, its limbs folding at impossible angles. Clara stood over it, panting, her chest heaving. It didn't move. The whirring had stopped. The pulsing in its veins had ceased. It was just a body again. A broken thing. She had done it. She'd killed it. Or unkilled it. As her ragged breathing slowed, she noticed something where she had struck its head. The scalp was torn away, but beneath it, there wasn't bone and brain. There was a tangled mess of multicolored wires, a shattered circuit board, and a broken, black lens that looked exactly like it belonged to a small camera. Her blood ran cold. A camera, in its eye socket. The game master hadn't just been controlling it. They had been looking through its eyes. They had watched her every move, her every moment of terror, from a first-person perspective. Her eyes then fell upon a small, dark object that had fallen from the body's jacket pocket during the collapse. A small, cheap, leather-bound diary. Her hand shaking uncontrollably, she picked it up and opened it. The handwriting on the first page was a childish scrawl, looping and awkward. And on the first line, there was a name. The property of Leo Maxwell. Leo Maxwell. The name hit her like a physical blow, knocking the air from her lungs. A name she hadn't heard or thought of in 15 years. The quiet, strange, lonely boy who lived down the street when she was a child. Her little shadow, her mother used to call him. She had been kind to him, mostly out of pity. He'd given her a nickname. Then, one summer, his family had just moved away. With a growing sense of icy dread, she flipped through the pages. It was filled with obsessive, frighteningly detailed entries about her. What she wore, what she said, who she spoke to. His all-consuming, unblinking obsession. She flipped to the last page. The handwriting was no longer a child's. It was an adult's angry, spidery script. The entry was dated yesterday. She still doesn't remember me. I see her in that glass box of a motel every night. So alone, so perfect. She needs a reminder. She needs to remember her oldest, dearest friend. I'll send her a message she can't ignore. He won't talk much, but he'll get the point across. She always liked games. It's time to play a new one. I told her I'd always find her. Clara Bell. Clara Bell. The nickname. The one only he had ever used. The fire extinguisher slipped from her numb fingers and clattered to the floor. The monster wasn't the body on the ground. The monster was Leo. A lonely boy from her past, twisted by years of silence and obsession into something unrecognizable. A sudden loud laugh echoed through the room. A tinny, distorted, horrifying sound from the cheap computer speakers. It was Leo's laugh. Then new text appeared on the screen. DIDYOULIKEMYSURPRISE THEREALGAMEISJUSTBEGINNING. The chains, the dead phones, the body, the camera. It was all him. He was watching her right now. Through what? Clara slowly scanned the corners of the office, the barred window, the dusty air vents, the black, unblinking lens of the computer monitor. The truth was a cold, suffocating blanket. He wasn't in one place. He was everywhere. The Starlight Motel wasn't just her prison. It was his dollhouse. And she was, and always had been, his favorite doll. At dawn, the locks on the motel doors clicked open. The chains were gone. The landline had a dial tone. Clara stumbled out into the cool, gray, indifferent morning, leaving the grotesque, technological horror scene behind her. She got in her car and drove, and she didn't stop until the Starlight Motel was a forgotten speck in her rearview mirror. She was rescued. She was free. but she had never felt more trapped. Clara survived the night, but she never truly escaped. She moved, changed her name, tried to bury that night under a new life. But freedom was an illusion. The real monster, the one who pulled the strings, was a ghost from her own past. A ghost who was very much alive. And he was still out there. Every flickering light is a potential message. Every silent phone call is a potential warning. Every stranger's face in a crowd could be his. She had escaped the motel, but she could never escape the game. The psychological prison he built for her that night had no walls and no exit. The monster, her oldest, dearest friend, had just let her know. The show was only just beginning. If you found this story as disturbing as I did, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe. And let me know in the comments. Once you knew the truth, what would you have done? Would you run, or would you try to hunt the hunter? Thanks for watching.